Thanks for staying with us. Now, in politics, a defector is a person who gives up allegiance to one state in exchange for allegiance to another, changing sides in a way which is considered illegitimate by the first state. More broadly, it involves abandoning a person, cause, or doctrine to which one is bound by some tie as of allegiance or duty. So what are reasons for the surge in defections in Nigeria? Turncoats usually would complain about the absence of internal democracy in their parties and of political witch hunt by political gladiators, not remembering to state the level they can go just to occupy political offices, and zero interest for the nation they intend to govern. So how true is this, though? Particularly since no mention is made about the developmental interest of Nigeria as reasons for changing sides. Isn't it weird to see politicians castigate a political party at sunset only to defect to the same party at sunrise? What does it mean for our democracy, and how would it impact us as a nation? Now, please let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. So I'm going to bring in David in like a minute or two. What do you think all this cross-carpeting, jumping from APC to PDP, back to PDP to APC, what do you think?
Political nomadism. That's all I can say.
They call them political
because it's I don't know. How do we hold our political leaders accountable? Governance is one thing. They are, for whatever reason that they move from one party to the other, it's not in the interest of the people. It's not about governance.
It's always personal.
It's always about an agenda. It's always about the political party, or it's always about the internal division. One way or the other.
It's not internal. I said it's just. Let me hear Elsie's thoughts.
If there's one thing I agree while you were speaking, when you said some of their excuses is the fact that there's no internal democracy. I think that's the one I would definitely agree with them 100%, because I remember we had a guest where I asked the question, and I said, if the political parties we claim to have does not practice democracy in their party, then why exactly do we think we have democracy in Nigeria, you know? And remember when we had Kunle Lawal as well, when he said that when he lost the election in Abuja, to him, he didn't feel like he lost an election. He felt like the people lost a senator, right?
Exactly.
And I said, I want to get to that point where I begin to see our leaders look at politicking and elections that way, that they are there to serve, and if you don't choose me to serve you, then it is your loss.
It's
and
your
maybe
loss,
there will be sanity.
And that is when you actually,
when your
intentions are pure.
See, that is when it's not even about purity. Forget, everybody's intention is pure. I purely want to enrich my pockets. But you see, it is when the intention is about the people. It's about governance. It's about what you're supposed to do. So a lot of times when you see them cry wolf, is because it seems like they do not have the opportunity to sit at the what's it called, the seat of power. So they would cry wolf and all of that. Next thing they say, yeah, come clean your face, come and sit down here, come and take this. It's almost like a compensatory kind of thing that we see all the time. So that's what sickens me to my stomach, because I mean, in other climes you would see people, strong Republicans, strong Democrats, there are ideologies that they follow. So as long as those ideologies are what they are moved by, you can't just jump and say, wake up and say.
So if we're going by that, the question you should be asking now is, what is the ideology of an APC? And what is the ideology
let me ask David
of a PDP? So if there's no ideology, what do you expect the members of the political party to hold on to?
All right, so let me ask our guest. David is a writer, investigative journalist, and broadcaster whose work has appeared on CNN, the Africa Report, the New Yorker magazine, and the Washington Post. His work as a satirist on the other news, Nigeria's answer to the Daily Show, has featured in New York Times Magazine, and it's also on Netflix as a documentary. That's Larry Charles' Dangerous World of Comedy. In 2018, he was nominated by the U.S. State Department for the 2019 Edward Murrow Program for Journalists under the International Visitors Leadership Program. And in February 2021, he won the People's Journalism Prize for Africa in 2020. Thank you so much. And he's joined in from the UK. Thank you, David, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so you heard our banter on this topic. Nigerian politics and the impact of cross-carpeting on governance. For me, I think we do not have ideologies that we follow when it comes to our political parties, and I feel that a lot of them are just in politics just for what they stand to gain, not so much about governance or, providing great leadership for the people. But let me hear your initial thoughts.
So something I wanted to quickly point out was that before I get to the political parties, the people we refer to as politicians in general, we make a mistake in Nigeria where we put all of them in one basket, that politicians are all the same. There are politicians and there are politicians. There are politicians in Nigeria who have actual agenda, whether for good or for evil. They actually have some form of ideology. The current head of state, for example, is one such person. I'm not so sure it's a positive ideology, but he does have some kind of ideology. And then you have your Femi Fani-Kayodes and your Dino Melayes and your Atiku Abubakars, who are your regular, meat and potato horse trading politicians. They're not in the same category. They're politicians who are just looking for opportunities to get something for themselves. And they're politicians who actually have some kind of agenda, some kind of a vision for what they think the country should look like, whether for good or for bad. And bringing that back to the political parties, yes, on the surface, it would seem as though because of the rate of, as you put it, cross-carpeting between the two major parties, it would seem as if, right, these two obviously have, there isn't any significant difference between them. You can just move from one to the other back and forth, as people like Fani Kayode have done several times. He started off in the APC, then he moved to the PDP, then now he has moved back to the APC after saying that he'd rather die than do that. However, it's also important to keep in mind that Nigeria's politics, first and foremost, has never been ideological. The political formations, which we know are political parties, are built first and foremost around regions and around religions. They are regional parties and parties built around religious identities, which have morphed into national parties. I explained in a thread I did on Twitter a couple of weeks ago that the party we refer to as the APC now, for example, is a successor party made up of the parties that used to be the Action Group, which was Obafemi
AD and CPC.
And the Northern Conscience Party, which was what's his name, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa's party. The successor parties of those entities now make up what we now know as the APC. The party we know as the PDP had a similar power sharing agreement. So the parties that we knew as the UPGA, the NCNC, and so on, they make up what we now know as the PDP. So there is a strong regional component that makes up the politics of Nigeria, and that persists today. So it's important to remember that the major thing that differentiates parties in Nigeria is not really their ideology per se, it's their regional outlook. So the reason the PDP was created in 1998 after the death of General Abacha was a sort of elite consensus such that an Abacha wouldn't arise again, such that there wouldn't be conflict again. So they created this sort of power-sharing vehicle, which they called the PDP, and they introduced things like zoning to sort of pacify everybody. In practice, that didn't work out. We've seen very well that didn't work out. And then the APC broke out, and then they became what they are today. So in the process of trying to pacify everybody, PDP became broadly sort of market-oriented. So that sort of gives it some form of economic ideology, even though that's not something that is written down in its constitution anywhere. And then the APC, on the other hand, based on the makeup of the parties which made up the merger of APC, has its own separate leaning. Now, the politicians who hop between both parties, I have to say, are some of the I don't want to use the word unfortunate, but these are the politicians who you really don't want to entrust a country to. These are politicians who first and foremost don't understand even the game that they are playing. They don't understand the politics that they're playing. All they're looking for is just anywhere there's corn, like a chicken, you just go peck it. So you start off in the APC, move to PDP, move back to APC, move to, wherever you see an advantage, you move like that. Because you don't really understand what the people who created these parties, you don't really understand what led them to create it, what agenda they are pushing. You think you are part of the power structure, but you're actually not. You know, people like Femi Fani-Kayode fall very much into this category. People who you see them in the news every day and they take pictures with the president. And so, you know, you get the impression that these people are close to power. Actually, they're not. They're not even close, right? So these kind of people, probably shouldn't take them that seriously. The kind of people to take note of are people like the president, who has been in one political formation for most of the past 20 years and has never shifted. Those are the kind of people you want to keep an eye on. What agenda do they have? What ideology do they have? And the power that they wield as the de facto head of the party that he is, what is he doing with that power? That's, when you're analyzing Nigerian politics, that's what you want to pay attention to, not Femi Fani-Kayode.
Okay. David, it's interesting that you are categorizing these people and the different kind of cross-carpeting. And I don't think this started with a Fani Kayode or a Dino Melaye or those who would say they are very interesting in the media. But I wanted to categorize people like Governor Obaseki of Edo State. What would you describe, what would you say is the motivation behind his own cross-carpeting? Because it's sort of paid off.
Well, I mean, in his case, it's a purely local thing. It's also important to differentiate state politics from national politics. So at state level, they have what they call APC and PDP, but those are just proxies for something else entirely. So at state level, the sort of power equation in Edo State, the factions that make up the power struggle in Edo State, they then adopt one of these sides. So if you are on the side of a particular power structure, you adopt the party called PDP. Not because you know what the PDP means or you care about what it stands for, or it means anything to you, but simply because it's a vehicle. And then the other people take the party called APC because that one is also a vehicle and it has federal backing. And then two people fight it out. In actual fact, the fight is not really APC versus PDP at state level. There is something deeper than that. So in Godwin Obaseki's case, for example, where his main challenger, his main rival, Pastor Ize Iyamu, if you trace the line back far enough, there's actually a family dispute between both families. There are two very powerful families in those states who historically don't get along. There's a conflict there that predates the creation of APC and PDP. So the insertion of those parties into the politics of those states is just a thing of convenience. I don't think they really can. And if after 2023, if APC morphs into something else, you see they will also morph too into that something. Because whatever they are claiming to be now doesn't really matter. They have their own politics that they play. I was talking to someone recently who made the point to me that in states like Cross River and Akwa Ibom, where it seems like the PDP has this everlasting stranglehold on their politics, and people don't understand why these people are so loyal to the PDP. Why do they always vote for the PDP? And he explained to me, he's an indigene, he explained to me that you people from the outside see it as PDP, whereas we see it as NCNC, which is our regional party. So the PDP was basically just a successor party for the NCNC, which was our regional party. So that's how come, we're willing to die with it, because it's our NCNC. So to you, it's one thing. To us, it's something else altogether. It's just that it wears an umbrella on its head. So, you think this is one thing. It's actually something else entirely. So state politics and federal politics, very different.
Absolutely. You know what? On that note, we'll just take a very short break. When we return, we'll continue the conversation. Stay with us. If you just tuned in, we're having an amazing chat with David on political cross-carpeting. Please let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. So just before we went on a break, you were talking about, federal level, different things. And I remember sometime, I think Goodluck Ebele Jonathan was still president, and there was an event happening at a big place where they had a lot of political leaders, and this woman she was a local council or something in Lagos. And I remember her telling me that the first lady had told her that come, all this na APC, now here is stop, that when you come to Abuja, it's PDP. So meaning that even though APC is in power in Lagos, they respect and they understand that APC is in power in Lagos. But you see, when it comes to federal, everybody's PDP. So tell me, how does this even impact the kind of leadership that we're going to have? Because it means that nobody can be held accountable. You can just do whatever it is that you like, you know. I mean, how does this impact our governance? Help me understand this.
I think it's very clear the impact that this has had to date. The creation of the PDP, one of the major criticisms that should exist about the PDP, both as regards the time in power and as an opposition party, is that right from the start, PDP was never and I'm focusing on PDP obviously because this was the party that, to all intents and purposes, kicked off the Fourth Republic. The creation of the PDP was not something that we were involved in. It was not a project that the people were involved in. It was an elite consensus thing. It was a group of powerful military officers and rich business elites who came together and decided to create a special purpose vehicle, to parcel a country out to each other and to essentially pacify each other with different, little fragments of the country. We weren't involved. So the effect that has on governance is that I remember in 2006, I think it was, or 2005, I was still a teenager then, and I remember it was the NTA then, and I think it was Audu Ogbe, if I remember correctly. I'm not completely sure about that. I think it was Audu Ogbe. He was a minister of communication or so, and I recall there was an incident. I remember this story very, very clearly because it caused a furore in the media. There was an incident where the NTA reported a story that the government felt some kind of embarrassment about. This was under Olusegun Obasanjo. And this fellow went to the NTA and essentially told them that, look, you people are an arm of the PDP. He didn't even say you are working for the government, so you are going to, repeat the government line. He said you are an arm of the PDP, you work for the PDP. That's what he said at the time. And I remember it caused a huge furore because actually that's not true. The NTA is not an arm of a political party, it's an arm of the government. Yes, the government is controlled by a political party, but at least on paper, the NTA is supposed to be apolitical, it's supposed to be partial. But that statement, even though it was probably a Freudian slip, that statement betrays the way politics has been shaped in Nigeria since the start of the Fourth Republic, where it's assumed that once you are in power, once you've won an election, then the entire state is at your disposal, it's at your political disposal. All the levels of government are at your disposal. So, for example, in 2016, after the current president came in and he decided that the entire country has to bow to his will. There shouldn't be any such thing as an independent arm of state. So I recall in 2016 when there was this media campaign going on about how judges are allegedly corrupt, and then the DSS was going around bombing the houses of judges in Abuja, and it was absolutely surreal to me. But the perception really in Abuja at the time was that, look, we are in power now, it's our turn. We are the ones in charge. So anyone who thinks that there should be any such thing as an independent arm of government, or they want to maintain their autonomy, they need to be flattened. And this was all across board. It went as far as the National Bureau of Statistics, the NBS, which was headed, very fortunately for us, was headed by a very competent man, Dr. Yemi Kale. And fortunately or unfortunately for them, they renewed his 5-year term in 2016. Only for it to turn out that they regretted doing that, because this was somebody who was fiercely independent. This was someone whose office wasn't really funded by the Nigerian government. People working in the office weren't on government payroll. They were on the payroll of multilateral institutions. So all the data that was being put out was objective data, which the government found embarrassing a lot of the time. And they made a lot of attempts to silence him or to try and influence him to report things in a slanted way, or to hide data, or to fiddle with statistics the way we used to, and he refused. Now his tenure has elapsed and he has been replaced, and we're going to see how we're going to regress, because this was the precedence that the PDP created, and the APC is going further with it, that once you are in power, once you control the levels of government, then the entire country is your estate. The entire country belongs to you, and nobody else is allowed to have a say, and you can do absolutely whatever you want.
Yeah, but that is already is happening because they do not see themselves as truly opposing parties. Yes,
they're not truly
because they know that tomorrow, if they throw a bone at the opposition, it will come over to their camp. But let me hear you.
Okay, so a political analyst once said to me that cross-carpeting is not against the Constitution. Okay, so how has this empowered, or how has this act of the politicians abused cross-carpeting in Nigeria, and how has it impacted governance as well?
Well, the act of crossing a carpet, the term actually comes from parliamentary politics, where you have to actually cross the floor of the parliament to go from the left wing to the right wing or vice versa. The act of crossing a carpet is supposed to be like the political equivalent of hitting a nuclear button. That when you are absolutely at the end of your wits with the current status quo, and you are sure that the political formation you belong to no longer represents your ideals, then you cross the carpet and you go to the other side, because you believe that is better suited to serving the interests of the constituents. It's supposed to be a nuclear button. I'm not even talking about the morality of it. I'm talking about the political mechanics of it. It's not supposed to be something that you deploy every 4 years. Ideally, you are not even supposed to cross the carpet at all. It's supposed to be, and if you do it, it's supposed to be a nuclear option. It's not something that is supposed to be done regularly. So when you do this thing the way Nigerian politicians do it, because they don't really understand the purpose of politics and the purpose of governance in the country that they're working in, what that does is that it bastardizes the entire process. First of all, it creates in the corridors of power itself, it creates an idea that politics is just a game. It's not a life and death thing, whereas it actually is a life and death thing. Because everything, pretty much all the things that affect the lives of ordinary day-to-day people are determined by political decisions. The exchange rates that you were talking about, the reason the exchange rate is where it is the result of a political decision not to float the naira and to keep on maintaining an artificial, fraudulent exchange rate, which has a black market. That's politics. Unfortunately, politicians don't understand that, because as far as they're concerned, it's just a game. It's just when you are not getting what you want here, you move to the other side, get what you want there. Some politicians actually have memberships in both parties at the same time simultaneously, because they really don't take the vehicle of politics serious. Politics to them is just a sport or a business. It's just something they do to gain income or to pass their time, to amuse themselves or something. So that's the major criticism I have of the act of crossing the carpet. It bastardizes the political process, the electoral process, and then almost as importantly, it creates an impression in the minds of the electorate that politics is a pointless thing, that there's no use engaging, that they're all the same. After all, they cross from one side to the other, they all like each other, they're all friends, so why should I bother voting? Which is a very dangerous situation to create in an electoral democracy, because when the voter apathy starts becoming like what we're having in Nigeria, where voter turnout is maybe like 20 or 30% in a federal election, then you are essentially having the leadership of the country determined by a minority of its population. And when that starts to happen, are you still a democracy? So that's the problem.
Okay, let me take this comment from BC. BC says, it's actually unfortunate that most of the Nigerian political class lack ideology. Most of the manifestos we get during campaigns are not expected to be trusted. Citizens don't hold the leaders accountable to ensure promises are fulfilled. It's so easy here to be a Democrat in the morning and conservative at night. The politics of winners take it all, and persecution of the oppositions contribute to this shameful behavior of cross-carpeting for no good reason. Thank you so much for that, BC. And I think that would take me to the question I want to ask in terms of what EC said regarding constitution allowing it. Do you think that there can be a constitutional solution? Because this is becoming a shameful thing, like she has rightly said, as far as I'm concerned. So do you think there can be a constitutional solution, and should we look into that?
That's a very difficult question. Some people have suggested in the past that there should be some kind of constitutional amendment to make it such that if a politician holding electoral office wants to switch parties while they're holding the electoral office, then they have to, yield the office, that it was the party that was elected to the office and not them, which technically is true, but some would also argue that it's not true. So I'm not really sure, and to me that seems like a minefield. So I'm not really sure, I want to take a position on that. However, in terms of politicians in general, switching from one party to the other, I'm afraid that isn't really something that you can legislate for. That isn't something that a constitutional amendment can change. The political behavior of Nigeria's political class isn't something you can fix with law. Nigeria is still a very immature country, politically speaking. I mean, this is by far the longest sustained period of, electoral democracy we've ever managed since independence, and it's just 23 years. So in global terms, we're a very young democracy. So I guess it's no surprise that we are making the decisions of a very young democracy. So unfortunately, I'm afraid that this is one of those instances where I think it's time and age and experience that will eventually force us to start, engaging in politics in a more mature way. I'm not sure this is something you can fix with a law, because this boils down to the lack of knowledge. It boils down to greed. It boils down to lack of patience, and it boils down to lack of moral fiber, to put it that way, lack of conviction. Lack of a fixed position on anything. So are these things that you can legislate for? I'm not sure. So unfortunately, I don't think there's a legal solution for it from my
Okay, so let me quickly take Raphael Akori, then I'll come to you, Isi, for your comment. Raphael Akori from Zaria says, cross-carpeting simply means our politicians are just political businessmen that need put food on their tables. Some of our political parties are tribal in their formation and has any national outlook. Our politicians are suffering from deficiency of ideology. That's why they will go to bed as opposition and wake up shamelessly in the other side. Never take them serious because they are potential anything. You guys should let me read this comment. Never take them serious because they are potential anything. You guys, let me read the comment in peace. Isi, let's hear your comment.
Sad.
It's sad, but I'm laughing.
The part that they said you wake up and you go to bed with
let me read it again.
With one person, and you wake up with another person another.
Our politicians are suffering from deficiency of ideology. That's why they will go to bed as opposition and wake up shamelessly in the other side.
Oh God. Do you know what that connotes?
But it's not all of them.
Please read the comment.
Okay. So, still on what's it called? Cross-carpeting. This is from Ade. He says, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We don't have politicians in Nigeria, but polytheians. This is transfer window for them against 2023 election to enrich their pockets. FFK is a man with political prostitution by jumping from APC to PDP to enrich himself. Few months ago, he spoke against PMB and now praising him for position. This is a man who cannot win an election in his family compound. Is unfortunate having this bad wagons in power. A law should be passed for anyone cross-carpeting to hand over the executive position before defection."
Okay.
You realize I didn't know FFP because I don't understand. But no. David, okay, I want to ask. Okay. Do we still have him?
Like 2 minutes here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to bring up something. I hope you can just address it real quick. Remember when this administration started and the chant was fighting corruption, and people from the opposition and a lot of people felt like the fight against corruption was one-sided in terms of witch hunting those that are not for them, right? And there is a video going around of Minister of Transportation Rotimi Amechi accusing FFK of fraud, corruption. I think about 2 billion, something that happened while he was still in aviation, right? So do you think that this is going to fuel that perception we already have, a lot of Nigerians have regarding this administration when it comes to fighting corruption?
Well, yeah, and I mean, to be brutally honest, it's not just a perception, it's an empirical fact that, I mean, who was, I think it was Adam Shomale, who actually came out some months back and said, you know, join the APC and your sins are forgiven. He literally said that, I'm quoting verbatim. So it's never been subtle. They're very blatant about it that we are in power, and this is what it means to be in power. We have power to destroy you, to journey. So if you know that you have to get to closet, then come and join the winning team and hopefully save yourself. So yeah, this would definitely.
I think we're having trouble with David's network. Yeah, his network is a bit cracky. So let me take another comment. This person didn't put their name. Says APC and PDP are the same party. And to me, they are all working together for financial gain, because I don't understand why people would just be moving from one party to another, from one party to the other, hated party to the other hated party. I mean, so I like your question that you asked, and this is where the impact. And I really
hope that audio will let him respond.
but I don't know if they can fix the audio quickly, but we've run out of time. But you see where the impact is for me is this thing, we will never get good governance if this is what we see in politics, because it means that if I am not in your good books, now this allegation that Amechi made, the video that's been going around, it's possible that they want to wake up FFK's file, so the guy will just quickly run and go and be inside PDP, and this is what we see. You know, I literally heard that comment. It says, don't worry, come to APC, all your sins are forgiven. So if we have everybody in the APC, who then holds the APC for accountable?
Where is the opposition?
It's so sad.
There is no
It's so sad. But David, can we just hear you again, if you can hear you for like a minute?
Please try again.
Because your audio was a bit poor.
Yeah, so
fantastic.
What I was
hear you now.
Yeah, what I was saying was that yes, it will feed that perception, and deservedly so, because even the pronouncements that have been made by people like Adam Shomale, when he said that if you join the APC, all your sins are. Other pronouncements that by other prominent politicians in power have made it clear that this is what it means to be in power in Nigeria, and this is what it means to be in power in this current administration. That if you have skeletons in your, if you have something to hide, then come and join the winning team and hopefully save yourself. You know, come and pay obeisance to the new sheriffs in town, and you'll be fine. And if you insist on being a strong head, if you insist on on being in your position and you have something to hide, then we'll come down on you like a ton of bricks, using all the levels of states that we have access to, including the EFCC or whoever. So yeah, this will feed that perception, and deservedly so. It should. So sad.
Yes. But thank you so much, David. We've had a fantastic conversation. We hope to bring you back again for more of this. But this conversation, I'm trying to laugh, but it's not funny, honestly, because honestly, I mean, if this is what we get in terms of politics, I don't even know where the end in sight for a small ray of good leadership will come from. But thank you so much, David. You've been a fantastic guest. Thank you, LC Godwin. Thank you, EC. We had a fantastic conversation. All right, so before we go, do ensure you follow us on Instagram. It's at PlusTvAfrica. You can interact with us further, drop a comment, and most importantly, we're planning a giveaway to say thank you to you for believing in the Ways brand and following the conversation. Do well to follow us now. It's at PlusTvAfrica. Like, share, and invite your friends and family to follow and watch the show as well. So if you missed today's quote, here it is again. Remember that political parties are not our tools, and don't let yourself turn into political tools, right? Just remember this. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow at 8 p.m. as we bring another great conversation to your screen. Enjoy.